It is the Frank and Friends show. Hi there, I'm Frank Murphy.
I'm Laura Beth Wells.
Another of my fabulous friends, and fabulous with a capital F. Hi, Laura Beth.
Hello.
Thank you for being here.
Glad to be here.
I'm so glad that I ran into you at the theater so that you could be here today to fill in for Kathryn Frady.
Me too.
But we'll get started by thanking you, of course, for liking, sharing, subscribing, and smashing that button for notifications on our YouTube channel. You also can listen on any of the audio podcast apps if you don't want to look at us. But I got to tell you, Laura Beth Wells is here. You're going to want to watch on YouTube. And you're also going to want to see the fabulous beach towel, which makes its appearance yet again on the show, and it will all summer long, except I have it upside down. Those are the Smoky Mountains. And there you go, Laura. You hold the tawdry motel sign that says, I don't know, it looks like an In-N-Out burger sign a little bit.
It does a little bit.
Or a motel in the Smokies is what we were going for.
I like it.
Yeah, so that's the Frank and Friends beach
so
towel.
soft.
I know, they're beautiful. You can get them on our website at frankandfriendsshow.com/store. Okay, so Laura Beth Wells, Broadway. Oh, theater, the Clarence Brown Theatre, recently getting rave reviews with Always Patsy Cline.
Yes.
That's a show for you. That was that show. Whew. They wrote that show for you, I think, and they should have. They could have.
That's very sweet of you to say. No, it was. It was amazing. It was a lot. I have a newfound respect for like musical artists that do 2-3 hour sets because it's Patsy does all the singing and Louise does all the talking. Yeah. And it's 27 songs in 2 hours.
And the story is about a fan and a star who corresponded.
Yes. Louise Seeger, who was a fan of Patsy Cline, they met at a concert in Texas at the Esquire Ballroom. Yeah. And she kind of helped, Louise sort of helped Patsy out. She was down there by herself.
That's great.
Acted as her de facto manager for the evening.
Nice.
And then they got to be friends until Patsy's
untimely demise.
Yeah,
there's a lot of untimely demises in rock and roll and music history, you know?
And the sad thing about it is that Patsy Cline was in a really bad car crash in 1961.
And survived.
It almost killed her and survived. And she was scared to ride in cars. And that's why her manager bought a small plane to take her from gig to gig faster. And Doughty West tried everything to get her to drive back with them in the car from Kansas City. And she said, no, I'm going to get on the plane. I want to be in the car.
And the plane. And this is 10 years after Buddy Holly and those guys, or not even 10 years, probably more like 5 years after those guys died in a plane crash.
Not too long.
Oh my gosh.
I know. But I learned so much about her. Of course, I knew who she was, but getting to know her, I really feel like I know her. Everybody would laugh at me all the time because I would have conversations with Patsy. I'm not crazy at all.
No, wait. The song says you are crazy.
I am. The song says
according to the song, you can say, "Hey, that's."
But I feel like I learned a lot from her in terms of just being a better performer and a vocalist. And
fantastic. As a radio geek myself, I was thrilled one time to just drop by the studios of WINC Winchester in Winchester, Virginia. And the FM station is still around, WINC FM, but the legendary WINC AM was the station in Patsy's hometown. Yes. So they have behind glass what they call the Patsy Cline microphone, because she sang into that microphone live on their radio station when she was younger, on her way up. And they I guess dusted it off and polished it up and put it there. I got a picture of myself somewhere with it.
I have to go visit.
Yeah, but it was kind of, so anyway, my wife also loves the music. It's just a great show. So kudos to you, and of course our friend Terry Alford, who directed, and all the great things. Clarence Brown just has it going on.
Yeah, they're doing, they're coming back.
That's the name of the theater for those of you
Clarence Brown Theatre,
elsewhere. Yeah.
They're coming back with some great shows.
I think, I remember seeing, we were there the other night to see Something Rotten, which is, I guess what happens is the Tennessee Valley Players, in conjunction with the UT Music Department, will rent out the Carousel Theater. And this is the last time they can rent it out because it's going to get, I guess, rebuilt. Is it going to be the same looking, or
no? It'll be different. They'll take it to the ground and build it up, because it was never meant to be a permanent structure.
Was it like because the dressing room looks like a trailer. It looks like a 1970s construction trailer.
It was. It actually predates the Carousel, because my dad did shows at UT when he was at UT in the 60s.
Wait, so you're saying the Carousel predates the Clarence Brown?
Yeah.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
Wow!
Yeah.
Because it's old.
By a couple, and it was always meant to be a temporary open air theater. It used to not have walls.
Oh.
It was a covered amphitheater.
So on a college campus, it would make sense to have a little outdoor space where you could have a little performance here and there, but not if you're staging a full-on Broadway-style musical in the round, which makes it exponentially harder.
Yeah, but the new structure will have it will be able
Regular.
to be in the round. Yeah,
Oh.
it'll be able to be in the
Well, there's so
round.
many new theaters are so beautiful.
Yes.
I mean,
they'll
I
have
know
bathrooms in the lobby, and you don't
See?
have to go next door, and the
All the-
dressing rooms will be,
These modern conveniences like plumbing. I mean, it's really fantastic. All right,
oh,
so
from the old days.
old theaters have a charm and a certain feel about them because they're old, but they're also miserably inconvenient and uncomfortable.
Oh yes, they can be. And some of the spaces that I've performed in are amazingly decrepit.
Oh, my cousin was I'll say it, a legendary firefighter in New York, and when he was in the theater district, his shtick would be to go to his whole career. He would go to all the buildings on his area in his domain, his precinct, whatever you would call that, on regular days and study them. He would go and study buildings and study the exits and the stairways. And he was actually known around the theater community because he was, that he would show up and inspect the buildings. Not really so much that he was trying to get them in trouble as he wanted to know how is he going to get his men out of the building when it catches on fire.
Yes, because theaters do that quite well.
Especially the old ones.
Oh yeah, they're
all wood
the
and
wood.
terrible wiring. They, because it wasn't, they add in this wiring.
Yeah.
So one time something happens in Times Square and there's a billboard. One of the billboards is about in danger of falling down. So they send my cousin up there to stop, to catch the billboard, to whatever it is, to do something to it, to keep it from falling on the pedestrians in Times Square. And he's up there, and the mayor naturally shows up. It was Giuliani was mayor at the time. And he looks up there, and you see this guy swinging like Spider-Man. And instead of making the Spider-Man joke, he says, "Oh, that's Captain Man-Hatton," because my cousin's name was Terry Hatton, and they used to call him Man-Hatton.
That's funny.
And there he is up there swinging like Spider-Man and saving the day once again. Which gets us to Spider-Man.
Oh yes.
Okay, did you see that segue coming?
That gets a ding right there.
See, I had that in mind as soon as I said my cousin. I was trying to tell my grandson Artie, who loves Spider-Man, that and now has seen maybe one or two musicals. He saw Something Rotten. So there was a Spider-Man musical. He's like, no, that wasn't.
Yes,
but there was, and they even had what's his name, Norman Osborn. They gave him a wife named Emily.
Yes, yes, they did, and which was who I played. And my role in terms of the relationship. And simply being alive more closely mirrored Doc Ock's wife. They sort of conflated our stories because in the comic books, Emily Osborn is always dead. And in this case, I was alive until my untimely demise at the end of Act 1.
Oh, spoiler.
Spoiler alert. And then I played a couple of other different roles in the.
Oh, okay. In the second act. Mm-hmm. Oh, I was going to say, do you get to go to dinner, or do they make you come back?
No. They got their money's worth. I did a lot of offstage singing as well.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, neat.
The dancers are doing their thing. They need a little extra oomph. So
the mechanics of theater are just a mystery to those of us who don't do it.
Oh, it was, and I would love taking people on backstage tours because the entire theater was just every single tiny corner was used for prop storage or costume storage and they hang stuff up in the rafters a lot. Stuff lived down in the basement. There were set pieces that were too large. They only could live in the basement, would come up on the pit lifts.
For their brief shining moment in the show.
And then they'd go back down.
Nice.
The show couldn't run with less than, I think, 8 stage managers. We had 8 stage managers because we had someone to call all of the automation and the lights, and then there was someone else to call all of the flying, and then there was somebody on stage right, somebody
and
on stage
flying
left.
Refers to Spider-Man having wires like Peter Pan so they can...
Actually, if you watch sporting events, the cameras that go like this over the field, that was the technology that they used. The bushing would go, and
so you're flying walls and sets too, or flying people?
All Yes, all the things.
I'm trying to learn the
Flying,
theater
all
term
the
for
things.
flying means.
In our case, there were people flying as well.
Yes.
But yeah, something flying in and out would be something coming from, like a proscenium theater, like the Clarence Brown.
Yeah.
Above, if you're looking at it from outside, there's the big sort of, the ceiling goes way, way up.
Right.
Those are the flies.
The fly
and
space. Okay.
The fly space, right. So stuff can live up there, and in the Clarence Brown, it's not automated. It's done by ropes, which is why, a little bit of theater trivia
please.
it is bad luck to whistle in a theater. Because before headsets, the way that the deck crew communicated with the people on the fly rails was like by ship whistles. So if you whistled, you might get something dropped on your head.
Oh, that's
so bad luck to
fascinating.
whistle in a theater.
Don't whistle in a theater. Oh my gosh,
that's why.
Excellent. Well, they did a fine job at Something Rotten at the Clarence Brown's, not that, the Doughty.
The You Love Doughty.
Thank you. And do you know who she was? I don't.
I don't know. I believe a patron of the arts.
Yes, I think we can do this. But while we were there, I saw you and your mom and your dad enjoying the show. And before the show, I ran into another fabulous patron of the arts who's well known in the Knoxville community. In fact, I mentioned her on this podcast last week, Mary Costa, who is in her 90s, and I sat behind her at the Marble City Opera production of The Copper Queen. And then here it is, another Thursday night. So 2 weeks later, on another Thursday night, I'm going to see Something Rotten, and who is at the counter paying cash for her ticket but Mary Costa. And the guy's asking her, well, what's your name? And she's like, Mary Costa, C-O-S-T-A, and she's writing it down for some reason. And how do you wish to pay? She says, cash, and she pulls out $25. And he's like, okay. And he has no concept of this. So I actually said to him, I said, you know who that was, right? No. I'm like, oh, dude, that's like Mary Costa, like Mary Costa Plaza Mary Costa, like Sleeping Beauty Mary Costa.
A true Disney princess.
Yes. I mean, because they also, she had her dance around, and then the artist drew based on watching her movements and filming her movements. And she sang and she spoke and she's all the things. And she, as we established, Kathryn Frady actually told me that Mary played Cunegonde in Candide, and you were in Candide when they did it.
I was.
At Clarence Brown. But when it premiered in London, so it had been in New York first, then they did the show in London. Mary was in it in the original London production.
I'd love to hear that.
The first London production. Well, anyway, so she's a patron of the arts, and she's Sleeping Beauty, and she's sitting there. So we get settled in. We deliberately got there early because festival seating, and we got great seats in the second row center. And this other family is in front of us, and they've got this adorable little girl who I learned later is about 10 or 5th grade-ish, so probably the same age as your daughter Lily. Yeah. And she's wide-eyed, and she wants to see theater. And you can tell by the way, just by the way the family is acting, that she does something. And I asked, because I'm nosy, and she's on a competition dance team. And I thought, oh, that's fantastic. And in fact, you know what? If your mom is watching, little girl, hi mom, why would the little girl watch? It makes no sense. But the mom said she might watch. I think the name of the dance team was Revolution. It just came to me. It's a very highly ranked, competitive,
I've heard of them.
Okay, dance team in Knoxville. Well, they're all there, and they're just getting excited, and they're taking pictures with the program and doing all the things that you do. And I say to her, I can't say hold back. I said, have you ever watched a Disney movie? Which, in hindsight, sounds like just horrible. If I didn't have my wife and grandson sitting with me, hey kid, have you ever watched a Disney movie? There's a van outside that says free candy on it. But I was talking really to the mom, and it turns out the mom had heard me on the radio before, so it wasn't really, the mom was comfortable, it's like, oh yeah, of course, this is that lunatic. Everyone knows him. Well, I said, Mary Costa's over there. So they think, maybe you can go to picture, go ask her. I said, she would love it. I know Mary Costa well enough. I don't know her that well, but I know her well enough to know that she embraces all fans, especially little girls who want to see Sleeping Beauty.
Yes.
Loves it. So they go over there, and Mary drops everything, stops what she's doing, and says to the little girl, oh, well, if you want a picture, why don't you come sit on my lap for the picture?
Oh.
I mean, and this is just, they're over the moon. They get the beautiful picture, and then up for every minute up until the show starts, the little girl is Googling Mary Costa and Wikipedia and looking at pictures, and her eyes are just getting wider, like, oh, this is who I just met. And I was so excited that it was, that was the case. So that was like a big. I thought that was a big deal.
I love seeing her, and I thought that they did a really. I thought the show was great.
And you knew a bunch of people in the cast, as did my wife and I. So naturally, at the end, I saw you run up and greet several people, and my wife and I wanted to do the same. You know, Roxanne, who played the minstrel at the beginning, is someone whom my wife has known since 4th or 5th grade because she went to the school where my wife works, right? And my wife even helped her when she was just a little kid and had to go sing at the church. My wife said, well, here's how you do it. I'll coach you. So we love Roxanne. And then a bunch of the other, you know.
I did a show once with Jessica Majors
Rankin. I was in the, you know what, I was there. I have a picture of us, of all together.
I think so, yeah. Over at Flying Anvil,
that's the first time I met you. I remember it very distinctly because that's how we met. I went to see the show with you and Jess Majors Rankin and others, and now she teaches the theater program with Laura Schoonemaker, who played the Puritan girl. The name just came out of my head, but it doesn't matter.
No, not Phoebe. It's another.
B is Jess's character. Well, we'll get to it. But you're right, not Fiona, but something nice. But it was but we knew people, and we're going around, and I want to. Artie's with me. I'm dragging him around, and I'm excited. Oh, look, there's the guy who played Thomas Nostradamus, who I don't know. Well, and Artie's.
That's Mike Watkins.
I found out. I found out.
We were in a production of The Fantastics together in the early '90s, over at. Somewhere on the UT campus, not Wesley, but
one of the other places.
One of the other small.
Well, he's one of those guys, I imagine, who is the consummate male theater guy. And I read an article from some other city where they were complaining about the men in community theater because they're in such short supply that they often miss, by necessity, multiple rehearsals. Because
they're doing multiple shows.
They're in another show, yeah. And whoever this, and it was obviously written from the point of view of an actress who is saying, we're fighting for roles, and there's so few roles, so few men for these parts, and there need to be more roles for us and less for them. And
well, it is true. There's a funny meme that I saw once that said, girl doing high school theater, I'm so glad that I've dedicated my life and I've done all of these dance classes and voice lessons since I was 3 to be ensemble person number 7. And, boy in high school musical theater teacher runs into the track meet and says, are you free? Come do the show. Come play the lead.
It's the truth. It's the truth.
It's kind of true. There's just...
Jess Majors Rankin directed a production of Music Man at Catholic High, and coincidentally, the kid who was her lead, Music Man, and had been the lead in 42nd Street the semester before, and so on, has now graduated, and he was in the cast of Something Rotten, and did great. Because he rose to the top and worked his tail off and did a great job. So we're going around saying hi to all these people we recognize, and at some point my grandson Artie, he's just had it. He's like, I don't have to meet everybody.
I think Artie and Lillian would get along.
I believe your daughter would get along very well.
One of the things I really liked about the show, we're talking about Spider-Man and big shows and flies and all of that, but this was sort of the opposite end of that, which actually is very Shakespearean.
They have to minimize it.
They didn't have a lot of set pieces in Shakespeare's theater. It was boxes and chairs and I actually really love that theatricality element of it, where your brain fills in the rest of it. Well, you have a chair and a desk and all of a sudden you're in a room, and then that goes in. I loved that.
Well, they're going to do Murder on the Orient Express at Clarence Brown next season. My wife and I saw a production of Murder on the Orient Express at Theater Downtown Knoxville, which is another tiny little organization like Tennessee Valley Players, and they use boxes and chairs. So they just had benches, and depending on which way they turned the benches, that became the train.
I remember those benches. I was teaching.
Of course you do.
Well,
your name is probably written under them.
No, I was teaching because I teach Theater 100 or Intro to Theater at both UT, and in the past I've taught at Pella City as well. And some of my students in my theater 1030 class, they call it over there, built those benches because they get they have a project they have to do, and one of the ways they can do the project is do volunteer hours.
Outstanding.
And some of my students built those benches. I remember them going and doing that.
Carpentry gives me an excuse to take a brief pause for our sponsor, which is the Middleburg Barn at Fox Chase Farm, which is in Loudoun County, Virginia, just outside Washington, D.C. And it was built 5 years ago in 2017 using the ancient methods. No nails. They use what's called mortise and tenon to fit the pieces of the barn together, much like they used to in the 200 years ago. And my friend Maureen decided that's what she wanted. She's got this horse farm where they do the jumpy horses, and it's the hunt country of Virginia. Yeah, I don't know what else.
Is that a technical term?
No, I should know the technical term, but they're the horses that jump over things. Instead of the horses that run around in circles,
right.
You would steeplechase them, or you would put them in the Olympics, for example. Like there was some guy who was well known apparently for being in the Olympics back in the 40s or 50s, who retired up there, and he passed away within the past few years. But everyone's like, oh, of course, everyone knows the great Olympian with his jumpy horses. And he would ride up till practically he died. But people up there, they're all into that. So she's got this farm where they do horse shows, but she built this barn and decided to make it rustic luxury. So it's got Swarovski crystal chandeliers, and it's got the ultraviolet HVAC system, and it's got this, they call it the Gucci barn. It's just spectacular, and they will rent it out for shows or weddings or corporate events, fundraisers, all of these things. The Wedding Wire wins the awards, the Couples Choice Awards on Wedding Wire for being, just the most gorgeous. And then it's right there in Middleburg, Virginia, which is, I like to say it's where JFK and Jackie would go for the weekend, because they did. There's a plaque on the pew where they sat on the last Sunday that he was alive, I know. Get out of here. It's right there. So, and you got the Blue Ridge Mountains in the background. You can open the doors if you want to, use the outdoors as part of your party. Throw the doors open. If you don't, close them up. So it's anywhere from 100 to 400 people can be comfortably, seated inside. And you can get all day, hire a caterer or do whatever you're going to do. Just have a barn dance. It does whatever you want to do. Call my friend Maureen. Area code 540-687-5255, or look them up online and see the pictures of everything I just described at themiddleburgbarn.com. So how about that segue, huh?
That's a fantastic segue. That's a ding.
Keep working on it. Well, I went out over the weekend to Oak Ridge, and coincidentally, while we're on the topic of theater, we saw Thomas Nostradamus, Mike Watkins. He was sitting in front of the Oak Ridge Playhouse handing out brochures for their subscription season, because that's where the Lavender Festival was.
I've always wanted to go to that, and I've never been.
Well, me too. I was wondered
I missed it again.
What is it like? And on the one hand, and I don't mean anything negative or positive toward it. On the one hand, it was like every other street festival that I've ever been to from a radio perspective, where we'd set up a booth and we'd stand there for hours. And actually, this was better because I got to walk around the festival instead of being stuck in my own booth the whole time. But you have, booths lining Jackson Square. They close off a street. There's food trucks, and there's people selling their homemade honey or their homemade.
And all to do with lavender.
Mostly.
Lavender adjacent.
There are people selling actual lavender, whether it's in the flowers or things made from lavender. But then, I'm sure if you looked hard enough, there's somebody selling replacement gutters, because that's what you have.
That's your lavender.
Yes. So Mike Watkins is overhead doing theater brochures. There was a guy who represented the Seed Library, the Oak Ridge Seed Library, which is a fascinating concept to me, because it's part of the Oak Ridge Public Library, and the Blount County has this, and he said maybe Seymour, and I haven't done enough research to find out if I can join a seed library. So here's how it works. You get a library card, like for books, and then you go there and you can check out seeds from the seed library. They use the old card catalog. Remember the old card catalogs?
Sure.
Well, those drawers have seeds in them. And they give you these seeds for like cucumbers or tomatoes or whatever. And you're supposed to go take them home and grow them. And then the next year you're supposed to, or whenever you harvest, I guess, you're supposed to bring back the seeds of your success and return them to the library after you eat the fruit.
Do they teach you how to dry them and preserve them?
They probably do. I mean, I think you get the feeling that everyone who is involved in this project already knows all that stuff.
Got it.
That there seems to be a certain hurdle of.
Got it. If you're going to the seed library, you know why you're there.
Yeah, there seems to be a certain level of, because I'm trying to talk to the guy about seeds, and I'm realizing I got nothing, and he's. And well, if you have this and this, and he's talking about cross-pollination, and I'm thinking,
oh, you lost me.
And these two different, I know. I said, look, I have figs, and
You have figs?
Oh boy, do I have figs. Do you like figs?
I love figs.
Do you need a fig plant for your house?
I would kill it. I'm horrible with plants.
Okay, you'll be surprised that I thought I was horrible with plants, but I grow the figs, and they seem to just grow like weeds around my house because
Really?
I allow it. I don't,
It's a fig paradise.
It is a fig paradise. I'm growing a fig forest out there. I've got fig row, and anyway. But I had the conversation with the guy about that. I'm walking around, checking out. They have some guy's got a little art station for kids that already love with a little picture, paint a picture or bang on a drum, and he was really good at that. Someone said he should be in music class. He's banging on the drum with some kind of semblance of less annoying sound than the other child. And one thing I noticed though is that most of the people, and I can't say this entirely, but I noticed a lot of people around who just struck me as being slightly older than me, like the people that I would have known who were like seniors in high school when I was a freshman, or maybe they, but let's say even more. Let's say more like the 5 years older than me, that crowd that were, I love I came in on the end of disco, and I loved new wave music, right? Well, these are the kids who are like Neil Young.
Got it.
And whatever else, James Taylor, and still the Beatles, all that stuff.
Yes.
So I was thinking, looking around, and all these people, they've let their hair go completely white, and they look good, pretty good, but they've got that look about them. And I realized this Lavender Festival should be sponsored by the AAR Hippie, because that's what they are. Is they're a bunch of hippies who have hit, pushing 70.
Yeah. I love it.
So that was to me, the target audience for the Lavender Festival.
My mom always says that she was as much of a hippie as her dad would let her be in the late 60s in halls. She grew up out in halls. She too loved the Beatles and all of those. She fits right in.
So I have this huge gap because my parents didn't have any interest in that. They liked Broadway, and they liked opera, and they liked classical music, and so I was never exposed. I didn't have an older brother or sister, so around the house, they're listening to show tunes, and they're listening to the talk radio station in New York, which was WOR, Rambling with Gambling, and this old timey, the Arlene Francis show, where she would talk about Broadway for like an hour, which maybe sounds familiar if you've been watching this show.
On the Broadway.
Yes, Arlene Francis. And she's like, well, I have to go beyond who, what's my line?
Right.
Or whatever she was on. So that's what that was my exposure to it. And I didn't start listening to popular music until probably like the early 80s, late 70s, early 80s. And I missed out on all that. So
I still am an only child, and
well, you never know.
You never know. But I was sort of the same. I just listened to what my parents listened to, which was Peter Paul and Mary and the Carpenters and Simon and Garfunkel, and so that is my memories of listening to music and it wasn't really until I was in high school and kind of like driving my own car and listening to the radio on my own. I was in control of the dial that
changes it.
Sort of discovered, music that was more like age appropriate, I suppose.
Exactly. The same thing. I was able to finally start driving myself to high school in my senior year of high school, and I'm listening to 66 WNBC and WABC and that kind of stuff on AM, so there's this gap. When I talk to my friends about radio, like, "Oh, don't you remember that song by Redbone?" I'm like, "No." To me, it's always been an oldie. I never knew it when it was new.
And it's interesting with a 10-year-old growing up now, sort of in this age of streaming and digital. She has her playlists on Spotify on our phones, and the rule is she has to ask to use the phone like before we get in the car, because I'm inevitably it's like you're already like pulling out driving. Can I listen to? No, I'm driving the car. I'm too busy. But so she plugs it in. So she sort of listens to her music, and on long car trips we have a rule that like everybody gets a turn. Like we're not going to listen to and we're typical parents like
well, I have to show you
blah, blah, blah.
I'll have to show you that Artie, my grandson, when he comes here, he's got a Spotify playlist, right? And we worked on it starting last year. But the songs on it are just so bizarre, because you've got these songs that are from video games like Plants vs. Zombies.
Yes, the video game songs are a
this
thing.
one is from Plants vs. Zombies from the Me channel. Then you mix in Queen, We Will Rock You, Thunder, Imagine Dragons. You Give Love a Bad Name by Bon Jovi, several other Bon Jovi songs, a bunch of these children's songs. Then you get in to Trans-Siberian Orchestra and Elvis Presley and Jerry Lee Lewis, because I showed him a video of Dennis Quaid as Jerry Lee Lewis setting a piano on fire.
This is very well-rounded. I'm very impressed.
He's got Rocky Top, which he loves because he loves coming here to visit. I mean, the theme from Jurassic Park.
Lily's really into the John Williams stuff.
Yeah.
She likes to listen to the
It's amazing.
the
It resonates with the kids. So he said the other day to me, can we add some new songs to the playlist? And I'll bet you it's going to be a bunch of the Something Rotten stuff, because
I bet it will be.
We were listening to that on Spotify as we were driving around the other day.
Oh, I love that.
Isn't that something?
That is. I used to listen to the first play that I really remember that like got hold of me, as my mama would have said. I saw Peter Pan at the Clarence Brown Theatre when
Fantastic.
I was about
I was trying
like
to explain
9.
to him that it's traditional to have a woman play Peter Pan. Is that?
It is, yes.
Was
It's sort of
I
traditional.
accurate on that? Because I'm thinking Mary Martin.
Mary Martin and
And then more recently, Sandy Duncan. Well, not more recently.
Sandy Duncan both made huge careers out of play. And I think part of that is because it is supposed to be an adolescent boy.
Yeah. And Kathy Rigby, who's a gymnast, did a national tour.
Yeah, so I think that's part of it. But actually, it was played by a man when they did it at when they did it at Clarence Brown.
That's controversial.
I know, right? Back in this would have been early 80s, I suppose.
Well, if you got a guy who can
Mid-80s.
physically do the part and hit the notes, that's part of it, right?
And I was obsessed, and I had.
Did you have to crow about it?
I did. I crowed about it, and I was so obsessed. I had the soundtrack
That's
on.
Mary Martin. That's a Peter Part.
I got a crow.
It's a long. Anyway.
And I had the soundtrack on cassette tape. And would listen to it every night before bed. And the part where they do the pledge, I pledge and I won't grow up. Oh, I'd get up on my knees and I had to stay awake till at least then.
I know. We had it. I mean, we're older. We had it on vinyl, the Mary Martin LP, which was a TV production. I don't know how. I think it was written and produced for television more so than theater. I think they did it in theater after the fact. But I think it was intended to be a live TV show, and they ended up. Now, of course, I'm now pulling all this trivia out without doing any research or any homework, so I'll have to look it all up. But my recollection is it was such a huge hit that they didn't have a recording of it. They had to do it. They did it again every couple of years. But yeah, that's a great arrangement of it. And my version of Cinderella that I go to is also the TV version of Rodgers and Hammerstein's Cinderella with Leslie Ann Warren as Cinderella. She's my Cinderella more so than the cartoon.
Yeah.
And those
absolutely.
songs, yeah.
Oh, those. I used to do the Stepsister's Lament from that by myself as my audition song when I was a kid.
Oh, that's a great piece. Hilarious. I think it was Pat Carroll was in the TV version that I remember.
Why would I want a girl like her?
Yeah.
little 10-year-old me.
Well, Laura Beth, you're an absolute delight. So let's wrap this episode and have you back for another one.
Sounds great.
Because there's so much more that we can talk about. And if you do enjoy audio entertainment like this, and obviously like we do, check out Audible, where you can get just thousands and thousands of titles. And if you use the URL audibletrial.com/FrankandFriendsShow, you'll get a free 30-day membership, premium membership for 30 days. And premium members get a credit every month to download an MP3 and keep it. So whether it's, I would recommend finding the longest audio book you can find, one that's in the 6, 7, 8, 10 hour range, and download that one. Assuming you can get it for 1 credit. The longest book you can get for 1 credit, that's what I would download. But also, once you become a continuing premium member, then you get a credit every month, and you can bank them, and you can add them up. You can download something every month, or you can listen to the stream. They've got our podcast on there. They've got dozens, thousands of podcasts. They're now creating custom audio entertainment just for Audible, so they have an exclusivity there. And, it's also available, especially on your Amazon devices, because it's the same company. You can easily listen to it on your Amazon Echoes or Alexas or whatever you call them. They've got great apps, a great app for the phone and for the tablet, and it saves your place. So when you stop listening in the car and turn off the car and then you want to listen in bed, it just picks up in the same spot, even if it's a different device. It doesn't have to be the same. Yeah, it's all cloud, it knows all. So that's Audible.
I am the Borg is I.
Yes, resistance is futile. That's audibletrial.com/FrankandFriendsShow. Check out our merchandise at our website, frankandfriendshow/ frankandfriendshow.com/store. Like these mugs, and actually also like the canvas print that I've hidden cleverly on the wall behind us. Please enjoy. Bucket hats, t-shirts, hoodies for a cold night, whatever it is you need. We've got a couple hundred different things on there that you can check out, and you're supporting the show. You're helping me buy batteries when you do that, and believe me, I just had to buy another box of batteries, and I could use your help. In fact,
batteries ain't cheap.
You could even just PayPal me the money, send it to frankandfriendshow@gmail.com. Laura Beth Wells, I'll see you again real soon, a couple of days for the next one.
Excellent.
And we appreciate your watching, liking, sharing, subscribing, smashing that button for notifications. It is the Frank and Friends Show. I'm Frank Murphy.
I'm Laura Beth Wells.
And we'll talk to you again next time. Has the bell stopped chiming yet?